I couldn't figure out a better title. Health is all we do, and so I put that into the title. So before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm an Asian kid, and you're offered two grand choices, medicine or engineering. In my case, my dad, sister, they're all pharmacists too, and my dad's a doctorate and all that. I couldn't make a decision. And I loved physics and I loved biology, so I became a biomedical engineer. So pick the middle, and that's what I did. I think CEOs are like that. CEOs sit at that intersection of people and what I call systems. And the reason I call my company sort of a system is because there's a fundamental course in engineering called systems theory. And you start to see the world in terms of systems and subsystems and closed loops and open loops and all that. And it was a class I really enjoyed. It was very, very good. The other one was the human body is 70% liquid. And so I got really into fluid and fluid dynamics and all that. So I always think that as a CEO, I sit in the middle of people and systems. So I thought I'd put this up here and scare you guys because I'm going to talk about systems theory for 20 minutes. If you're not an engineer, it would be bore you to death. But I picked, again, a fluid system just to demonstrate that, water comes in from whether it's from an aquifer or a river or a lake, and then you kind of settle it. You maybe put some filters. You do some treatments. You got people involved the whole time. You're monitoring. You're looking for little variability. You're making incremental changes. And then hopefully at the end of it comes out clean water that you can drink from your tap. So I think of businesses as systems. So let's try to give you a picture of how I look at a business, if you will. So a little bit about the company, just to kind of set context. That's our mission up there. So it's to keep people healthy and to keep healthcare costs contained. That's what we do. That's the only thing we do. And that gives you a sense of the demographics of the company. That's important because about, I'd say a little less than 2/3 of us are either nurses, pharmacists, docs. There are a few biomedical engineers. And then the rest of the company are all data-oriented. A lot of statisticians, a lot of data scientists, a lot of health informaticists. So we're big on numbers, to the point where anything I put out into the company better have some facts and figures to back it up. We're also 100% employee-owned. That's important to note because that kind of drives a little bit of our culture and how we do engagement with our people. So Dave's introduction was great. This is not a radical concept. It's something you should be able to intuitively, hopefully, get. But it's built on this idea of making incremental changes, continuous improvement, always looking for variability, always looking at feedback, and then making those changes. And of course, when you make those changes over a long period of time, good things can happen. So a little bit more about the company. So we operate, probably break a lot of business school theories, and probably even some of the speakers this morning that were so phenomenal would probably cringe when I mention this. So we have, if you will, business units. I think that's what most people, but they're independent operating companies. They all have their own individual sort of CEO. At the start of the year, we do set strategy at the company level. We set strategic initiatives, and then we have imperatives, things that have got to get done this year or the next. Those get to each independent operating company. And then from that point on, when the year starts, it's fully delegated. They run their company. They're very nimble. They make all decisions about it. Anything you can think about. Now, we have some shared services up top, like I'm sure you do. So marketing would be a shared service, finance. But even there, every marketing associate we have is clearly vertically integrated into an independent operating company. Every financial analyst is vertically integrated. That is all they do. They support that business unit. It's just for subject matter expertise, so the CFO can maybe teach a little bit of finance over there and that kind of thing. So that gives you a little bit of the structure, and that's really important too. What else is to say about that structure? So you can imagine, as that structure exists, and since they're off and running, we need ways to monitor them. We need to know how things are going during the year. So we have feedback loops that tell us how things are going in an independent operating company. The other thing we do there is while there's a lot of delegation, there's a lot of accountability coming back up. So they have to tell us how things are going throughout the year. Doesn't change the decision making, we just need to be aware of how things are going. So hopefully that sets the stage a little bit. So that said, one of the big things at the company that like most of us have are KPIs. Now, I'm pretty adamant our KPIs have to fit on 2 pages, landscape. That's the only KPIs we have. And no tiny font, no making the rows smaller. That's all there is. That's all the real estate you got. That's important because we get through the whole company once a month in about an hour and a half. And every time we see variability in a KPI, so this KPI covers sales, it covers all the operating companies, it covers people stuff, it covers competitiveness. It'll even watch for things like succession. So we have a succession plan, we have metrics around that. Of course, we got to measure everything. So we measure that too, and what it does is it tells us how many people are being internally promoted into key roles. So we have KPIs for everything. The only rule, like I said, is got to fit on 2 pages. And when a KPI has diminishing returns, which means we've watched it for a long time, there's not a lot of variability here. So then we use, there's some engineering theories about diminishing returns, so we get rid of that KPI. It's just gone. A lot of people get very possessive about a KPI because there's usually a way to create that KPI, and there's a lot of mourning when a KPI goes away, but it's gone. I know there are people who generate all these numbers, and they get pretty passionate about them. Just like most of you, we do set budgets, so we have an 18-month forecast, and at the start of the year, we set a number and all that, and then day 2, we throw all our budgets out. So we do everything as a percentage of revenue. Anything you think in this business is run by a percentage of revenue. What that does is from day 2, everybody is scaling their area. So they watch it as a percentage of revenue. If I'm finance, I'm watching it. If I'm marketing, I'm watching it. If I'm an operating company, I'm watching it. And you're very tied into the growth of the company, or if revenue is soft. So what that does is it creates a very nimble company. You're always looking at how to scale, and you deploy resources really quick. So our leaders know where they stand every 2 weeks. And based on that, they will make resource decisions every 2 weeks. And so you're a very nimble company. Decision-making is really fast. And because you have this independent operating structure, they're not checking with any hierarchy. They're just going. There's a very well-set rule that if you have temporary, a lot of cash or resources, you should probably look at non-recurring items. If you feel like it's sustained, then look at recurring items. And that's about the only sort of guideline we give people. So scaling is a big part, and that's why the budgets are set up the way they are. I wanted to talk about scaling, and I also wanted to make a plug for those who are newer to Tugboat to listen to Doug Tatum's presentation on no man's land. And we were in that for about 3 years. And what that means is you've scaled, you've set up your business, and still you're not growing like you want to. We had that for about 2 or 3 years. And so we had to make a lot of changes. Look at where the variability was, look at where things were not working, where the systems were broken. And we had to retool some things. And what that did is in the last 3 or 4 years, we've grown a lot. And we're able to add about 20 to 30% new business. And not that all we have to add, but what we have to add are people. But the systems are such that they can scale up 30%, which is pretty nice. And so we keep setting it up that way. And as I go into my talk, I'll talk about what that means. Most of the time, the changes are incremental, but I'll get to some other areas there too. So one area and I picked areas that were relatable to all of us. Like you could look at them and go, okay, that's not about clinical stuff or about health or anything like that. So communication is important. We use several channels like all of us do. So we use blogs, videos, emails, social media. We have an internal social media that you can post on. And just like every other part of our business, we always seek feedback here too. So if you read a note from me or you see a video that I've posted, at the end of it, I'm always going to say, as always, all feedback is welcome. So I don't care what it is. It's a video, it's a blog, it's an email. It's going to say, as always, all feedback is welcome. So I got this bright idea, another Tugboat. event, and Joe Motz was talking. I don't know if it was from the stage or in person, and he told me, I do these things called coffee talks. I just grab a mug of coffee, I put a phone up there, and it's a very informal video. I said, that's great, because when I've done videos, I had to do this big production. I'm like, I like that idea. So I didn't pick up the cup of coffee, but I did put the phone, and I recorded a video, and it was during COVID, so I was doing a lot of these videos, getting good feedback. But the first video I did, I got feedback. And this is a long-term employee owner of ours who said, you ought to look at the camera when you do a video. Because when I think, and I think hard, I tend to look up into space. Like, I think like this, so all you were seeing was this in the video. It was not a very pleasant video, as I'm sure. But, somebody was very comfortable enough to send a zinger back saying, you ought to look at the video. And guess what? After that, every video, I look at the camera. So that's the sense of how feedback works at our company. So it's constant feedback and then continuous improvement around it. And I don't care what it is. It could be a soft thing. It could be a hard numbers thing. It could be a new enterprise. So I wanted to talk about risk, not a very fun topic, but I bucket risk in two categories. One is entrepreneurial risk, us taking risks to create new things. And the other is risk management, taking care of risks that are headed towards your business. So I'll talk about the first bucket. So I remember I said percentage of revenue, and we also look at percentage of income. So just like most of you, we kick off a capital cycle at the end of the year. We look at all the best ideas in the company, and we fund them for the year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5 years. And we kick that off. And one of the things we noticed is some ideas never got funded. They were maybe smaller, or they just didn't get selected at the end of the year. So what we did is we look at how the year is going, and we'll kick off investment cycles all throughout the year, where people can put in their idea. They know what's going on in the company, know how we're doing, so they'll kick in an idea. And we now start funding at least about 2 or 3 times a year other ideas. So we don't wait till the end of the year. So that's entrepreneurial risk. We're pretty deliberate about big risks. Small risks, we kick off fast. If you have to scale them, we scale them at any point in the year. We make them bigger, make them more impactful. And if they're failing, we'll fail early, really fast. So we watch the numbers. We monitor all the metrics coming back from new ideas. And if things aren't going well, we end it. If things are going really well, we pump more money into it. And that happens all throughout the year. So you get the team now. Like, you monitor, you get the feedback, and then you act on it. On the risk management side, we have this thing called a risk register. A lot of companies use it. But it's a grid, and on the left bottom are very light colored boxes. And as you go up, they get more ominous looking. And all risks in our business are on this register. People are encouraged to post risks as early as they can. They bubble up, all the management teams and leadership teams work on it. And I get to review risks once a month. I get through all the risks in the company. Remember, we're sort of we do high-end clinical medicine, but we also do health. I get through all our risk management in about 15 to 20 minutes. So everybody comes prepared. We talk about all our risks, where we need to act on things, where we feel like, boy, things are getting out of variance. We'll try to apply some actioning against it, but otherwise, we get through risk management in 15 to 20 minutes. I think that's it. So I want to quickly get into what you can expect if you take on this mindset. And it's truly a mindset, okay? It's not like a set of tools. There are some tools, but it's more of a management mindset. It's sort of a management culture and how you approach things. So as you read the next few slides, don't get so hung up on the tools themselves. Think about a management mindset. So I'm going to go over some things that we use tools, and I'll go over some of the softer outcomes we've gotten from it. And then I'm going to get into some harder outcomes. So here's some of the tools we use. So root cause analysis. So we have a management mindset that when we approach an entrepreneurial risk, or we've got a problem in the company, the first question is, hey, what's the root cause here? So that's harder. That's not as intuitive when you think about new business. But what it comes down to is synthesize the problem. Tell me clearly what the problem is. So that's really important, and you'll hear our managers talk about that a lot. Like, crystallize that problem for me. PDSA, so we're big fans of Deming. I heard about Toyota. Toyota was pretty influenced by Deming. Our main conference room since the company was founded is called the Deming Room. We believe in the Deming cycle, which is plan, do, study, act, which is the idea that, so you've crystallized the problem now, plan on how you're going to do it, monitor it, see what's coming back, and then keep iterating, right? So it's pretty nimble, it's pretty fast. All that said, we're in medicine, so sometimes we have this habit of making heavy processes, just like our KPIs. And when they get too heavy, we apply a lean technique called Kaizen. So we bring people in, we look at the whole process, we completely decompile it. We sometimes have to re-engineer the whole process and then put it back out there and then monitor it and see what the feedback's looking like. We train people on this mindset. On specific areas of the business, we'll train you on a tool, but not every manager or every leader in the company needs to know all of this. They just know that there's a certain management mindset to how we run the company. And then I already talked about the risk register. I'll give a plug to Lester on this one. Lester talked about, again, I don't know if it was a talk or it was just a comment, I think it was a talk, but he talked about how it's important in ESOP companies to manage risk, because when we manage risk well, it increases the value of the company. And I think he called it turning over rocks. You know, turn over the rock, make sure what you got under there, clean it up. And we definitely take that mindset, and I think it's a much simpler way to explain risk management. Benefits, so in our business, you can't afford to get things wrong. Human lives depend on it. So it decreases unpredictability. You know, your clients can expect a certain predictable outcome from the things we do. Because you're leaning and getting more efficient, you get better margins. Less firefighting, so think about now problem solving, right? Something's going wrong. You have an approach, people know how to do it. Their feedback is taken very seriously. You're always working on it. And so it creates a certain culture in the business. It drives up engagement. So when we do our engagement survey, or culture survey as some would call it, 90+% of our employee owners will give us feedback. That's pretty good, at least what we're told by the company Quantum that does that for us. And our engagement rates are very high too. So, and that's because our employee owners know that anytime they give feedback, they will see immediate results of what that feedback did. And then this next one is probably pretty intuitive. So some of the hard, sort of the tangible outcomes you can expect. We've seen growth. We've had nice growth now over 10 years at the company, 11 years now. Increased profitability, so we get very profitable from doing things lean and good. We still keep a very reasonable profit, and we're very paced in our growth. Every once in a while, like I said, a process gets so bloated, we've got to tear it apart, do it new. Sometimes that doesn't work, so then we go up, we take the whole subsystem that we're working on, which could be a product, it could be a people issue, it could be a services type thing, and we completely re-engineer it. And out of that have come out entire independent operating companies for us. So that's pretty good. So while I said most things are incremental, every once in a way you trip into something transformational. And when you do it well, employee-owned companies, we really track our share price. So that's what our share price has been, increase over the 10 years. When our last share price increase in end of April came in, one of my vice presidents, who is a big Berkshire Hathaway fan and finance-oriented, he's not a finance guy. He's actually one of our independent operating company leaders. He sent me this slide, and I was blown away when he showed it to me. So that's what some of your bigger names did in the public markets. That's Berkshire, Google, Tesla, Microsoft, and that's Telligen. So, and yesterday I was at an ESOP roundtable with a bunch of them, and I can tell you there's a few, more than a few ESOPs in this community that would blow Telligen's number away. So that said, I'm just gonna make the case for incremental change. Not very sexy, not very appealing, but if you monitor your business, you look at how the results are changing, and you make incremental changes over time, sometimes you'll get to pretty transformational things. It's certainly been good for us. It takes some patience, and like Dave says, you'll get that compounding effect, and it's worked out really well for us. It's created some great results. So, thank you.